So a storm is definitely coming after the Serbs are back in Tommy's life, and there was a familiar face who returned, and that was Tatiana. But she's not the boss. The boss's name is Merkovich, and once he hears about the bodies that have dropped in Chicago, including Tatiana's as well as the product that he's had stolen from him, this shit is definitely coming back for both Tommy and Lilliana. Now we also saw Tommy's loyalty towards Lilliana and vice versa, and judging by how Lilliana can hold it down, she's definitely someone good to have as your sidekick. But there's problems with betrayal with Vic Flynn and Jenard Sampson, both plotting and going against their families, with Vic Flynn going behind Walter's back, and Jenard planning to try and dethrone his brother Diamond. And then we've got Claud Flynn who's making moves of her own, and now we're beginning to see this whole storyline take shape, especially with the drug side of things, and when it comes to family because Tommy met Herman for the first time. And then we saw D-Mac coming face to face with JP, who's his father. But as usual, we're going to get into all things episode 4 in this review and recap. But this episode kicked off pretty much from where the last episode finished, and that was with Tommy and Gloria. Something which Vic Flynn brought up in a conversation with Tommy because he saw Gloria and Tommy before in episode 2. But he's not letting this get in the way of them making money. And neither is Tommy because he told Gloria later on in the episode that he's going to find another bar. But this isn't the only thing that picked up from where it left off last week. So did this conversation between Elijah and Jenard, because Jenard plotted to take back the crown from Diamond, but Elijah is someone who's wary of Diamond, and he told Jenard the older heads won't let him get away with taking the CBI. But Jenard gave us a history lesson which I'm going to add some context to. Now he told us he gave up his future for Diamond, because 15 years ago Jenard was on his way to Brown University, and he had plans beyond the drug game. But Diamond's arrest changed everything, and he's the one who held it down for 15 years, and now he's willing to run through Diamond to get it back, especially considering he had him playing babysitter with Lilliana later on in the episode. And one thing we do know is, he has this younger crew on lock, while Diamond will have the old heads of the CBI on his side, so the CBI would be split straight down the middle. But let's talk about Tommy and Lilliana and connect this whole storyline back to the Serbs. And it starts with Tommy not letting this sit down with Walter Flynn, stop him from making moves. But Lilliana warns him about working with the Yardies and Zamost, because he's meant to be this crazy mofo and another connect who could pop up sometime in the future. But this is where we hear Tommy telling Lilliana that Ghost is gone, and because New York is over for him, this is his chance to get his. But Ghost definitely still lives within inside Tommy, especially with the moves that we've seen him making, but just added with a Tommy finesse. But his job for Lilliana was to follow Claud Flynn, which we'll get to in just a moment. So staying with Tommy, he sits down with Diamond, and in other words, the champ. And these old heads gave us another history lesson with Diamond, and he's someone who shouldn't be messed with. And you can tell we are watching Diamond hold him back, so I do think it's going to take something for him to really unleash. But as Vic joins their sit down, he tells him that he knows the hit on Uncle Paulie's wife wasn't the CBI, and he's happy to work with them, because Walter doesn't see the bigger picture of diversifying, and also because he's sick of waiting for his turn. Because we learn later, for as long as he's under Walter Flynn, he's a boy, but if he leaves and becomes his own man with Gloria, he wouldn't be considered as a Flynn. So he's torn between these two worlds, especially because him and Gloria have this big dream, something which he's not willing to let go of. Now, just before we get to Tommy, the Yardies, and the Serbs, we had Lilliana following Claud Flynn and seeing what she was up to, and what she was doing was selling the product that she found from Mai, and we saw her go into someone who were close with the Flynns, who's Reggie, and someone who considers Claud Flynn as a sister, and he's happy doing business with her once he tested the product. But as she closed the deal, she wants to keep this quiet from Vic and Walter Flynn. But we saw Lilliana continuing to watch Claud Flynn and report everything back to Tommy, because Tommy knows Claud's making moves of her own, and he wants every single last dollar in Chicago. And she's also now got a pharmacist of her own, so let's see what happens with this storyline. But let's come back to Tommy, Diamond, and Vic Flynn, because they were working with the Yardies, because Diamond is someone who's worked with Zamos before, and he knows they're a soft target, which they can control. But he was tipped off that the feds were on the way because Elijah was on the scanners. But this definitely sounds suspicious, especially with the way Jenard's been moving, and he definitely isn't happy with Diamond moving with Tommy and doing business with the Yardies, because in episode 1 he was giving stick to Jenard for working with them, but all of a sudden he's happy to do business with them with Tommy and Vic, and he tells Diamond ever since Tommy came around he's been making all kinds of bad decisions. But Diamond is someone who's thinking long term, because he wants to take over the whole of the east side and take their whole operation. But Jenard isn't the only one who's not happy. Walter Flynn is pissed with Vic and makes his place with the Flynns clear, and he also tells Tommy that he needs to stop dragging Vic down. But Tommy's right, maybe he's the one who's pulling him up. But as Tommy was having a history lesson with Herman, who definitely knows Tommy isn't no angel, because he was raised by Tommy Egan. But while this was happening, Lilliana was jumped by the Serbs looking for their product. And just before we get to the Serb story, Herman tells Tommy the story of how JP has always had a hole in his heart watching all these other kids with their mothers. And this is why he's always asking about Kate, who I do think will pop up eventually. But let's get down and talk about this whole Serbian story. And Lilliana is someone who can definitely hold it down. She didn't even blink when she was burned by the cigar. And she's even clever enough to text Tommy an SOS, which she noticed when she said, "Bring Ghost." And he had to be Ghost in this scene, when he took out yet another Serb, while Lilliana dealt with the other, and where she told Tommy their boss is a she. And this definitely got Tommy curious as to who this boss lady was. So she dropped Lilliana to Diamond's barbershop to be safe, and where Jenard tried to play Lilliana against Tommy, and even offering her money if she smoked him. But this was of course never gonna happen. And this scene also showed us how smart Lilliana is again. She doesn't take no product that she's not cut herself, because you are just one bad batch of product or one bad pill away from your death. And Lilliana is definitely smart. And we all know Jenard is smart as well, because he was on his way to Brown University. But Diamond controlling things the way he is has him all fucked up, and sooner or later something does have to give, because Jenard will make his move, and only time will tell if he makes the right move. But now it was Tommy's turn to give Diamond a history lesson with him and Lilliana and the Serbs, with how Ghost killed their own boss, Jason Mičić. But they've got a new boss who's Merkovich, and he's got all the inroads to Chicago, and a lot of territory. And Diamond's down with Tommy because he's been making some good calls, but this Serb shit is dangerous, and once Tommy starts it, it definitely can't be undone. And he's definitely started it because he knew who he was attacking, and that was Tatiana. And for those who remember, this was Milan's girl who used to work with Ghost, and when Jason Mičić had Tommy at gunpoint in season 4, episode 6, she's the one who stopped Jason from killing him. But this is something I'm gonna go through in a lot more detail in my recap part 2 later on this evening. But Tatiana tells Tommy that even though she's had her coke back, she can't just let Lilliana live, especially because she considers Tommy hitting 4 of her men. That's Milan, Jason, and the 2 that were killed in this episode. But Tommy wasn't just going to give Lilliana up, he had her back, and he also had a backup plan, which was Vic Flynn. And just like that, Tommy was up 6-0, which turned into 7 when he killed Tatiana as well, after telling her that he's already dead. And now this is a storm that Tommy, Lilliana and Vic Flynn are now all in, and a storm which is already here in Chicago. And once Merkovich hears about how 4 of his men were killed, along with Tatiana, he's definitely going to come looking for Tommy, as we've all seen in the season trailer for Force. But elsewhere in the episode, there are a few storylines that we need to keep an eye on. Officer Bennigan is on Vic's payroll, because he needs to pay for his sister, and maybe she's sick, and maybe he's got a lot of medical bills that he needs to pay for. Now, we were also introduced to Uncle Paulie's son, Andre, who's a junkie and sick, and you can tell he does care about his son because he wants him to go into rehab and clean himself up. And he also gave him some money, which will probably go and be used on drugs anyway. But they've definitely brought Andre into the storyline for a reason, so let's see what happens with this one. But this episode seemed like there was a lot of history that was being brought up with Tatiana, Herman, and Uncle Paulie, and we are now beginning to get to know these characters a lot more, especially with D-Mac and JP. Now, Herman made it clear to Tommy that he tried to do the best and be the complete opposite of Kate, and do right by JP and look after him, and it does seem like he did a good job. But JP wasn't able to look after D-Mac because his mom took him away when he was 2, when JP came out, but unbeknown to him, he actually came face to face with his son after him and Marshall rolled up outside his club, where D-Mac actually saved JP. And the look on D-Mac's face when he came face to face with his father, you can tell at some point this secret is gonna come out sooner rather than later. And this is when I do think D-Mac is gonna start to hit a crossroad in his life, and where he starts to look at Tommy as more of this mentor and father figure, which Jenard definitely won't be happy with, because D-Mac and these young kids are his soldiers. But that was episode 4, where the action definitely picked up pace, where they've now set the foundation for the Serbs and Merkovich to make his entrance at some point this season as Tommy's main enemy in Chicago, because of how he's now had Milan, Jason Mičić and Tatiana all killed. So a storm is definitely already here, and it's gonna get worse and even more complicated with the in-house rebellion that we're seeing from Jenard, Claude and Vic Flynn, which will just add to the issues with the CBI and the Flynn family. But drop all your thoughts down below on episode 4, and I will be back with my recap part 2 later on this evening, going into detail on the Serbian Network. So if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 4 Force and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.